Bim Bam on Jackson Avenue. Rob Brown, Brendan Martin. Big show today. A lot to talk about. Brendan, let's just get started. We got ULM AD John Hartwell joining us, Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi. We got Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa, Tide 100.9. We're going to cover all 16 SEC schools, and we're going to be talking about schools around the country because the SEC's got to play them. Take a picture with your cellular phone of the QR code. We are on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, 7 channels simultaneously. So look, catch us live. If you can't watch us live, watch us when you're flying, when you're riding the exercise bike, on your commute from work. If you live in Columbia, South Carolina, if you live in Jackson, Mississippi, if you live in Montgomery, Alabama, wherever you are, we love having you watch us. We thank you more than you know. We do this every day of the week on this channel, and we got one of the best right here, JW, Jake Wimberly from ESPN 105.9 in Jackson. Jake, you've been looking at a lot of numbers. The football magazines are coming out. We do know this. There are 16 schools in the SEC. Make a case for, does the SEC have an elite team this year? Because we know that every conference out there wants to knock the SEC off of their perch at the top, mainly the Big Ten the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten right now can say, hey, what do you mean SEC is at the top of the perch? We're at the top of the perch. Michigan won, Ohio State won. So the two big horses in the Big Ten are kind of sitting in the mountaintop right now. And of course, Michigan with a step back this past year, I would expect them to rebound and be better this year. We'll see about Ohio State. They're going to be young and very talented. Vegas still likes them as one of the favorites. I tend to believe Vegas plays with you a little bit about that. But when you talk about, the SEC, is there an elite team? It's, how are we defining, an elite team? I don't know that we're ever going to see any, the Alabama run that we saw under Nick Saban ever again. I don't even know that we're going to see the Kirby Smart, run from, 2 or 3 years ago where, 2 out of 3 years he won a national championship. But is there a team that, I think that can be the elite team, the top team in the country? Yeah. I mean, obviously everybody's going to go straight to Texas. A lot's got to happen with Texas to do that. I like Texas. I have been winning the national championship, but that means Arch Manning's got to deliver. He's going to be the guy that, we feel like he can be. They've got to develop that offensive front. That's going to be a young offensive front. Defensively, I think they're going to be as good as anybody in the country. So, move Texas in that possible elite category. Georgia, I think you got to keep them there until they show you that they can't. I will be interested to see about the defensive depth at Georgia and what that looks like. Last year was just kind of a shell of what Kirby Smart does defensively. Yeah. And then I think you got to look at Alabama and say, hey, look, you look at the recruiting that they've done. You look at, Ryan Grubb being down there in Tuscaloosa with Kalen DeBoer now. How good is Ty Simpson? We just don't know. I mean, we saw Ty Simpson in a snapshot 2 years ago down at South Florida. We don't know. So I think Alabama could be as well. And then after that, Bob, it's a smorgasbord of what could happen at LSU, Texas A&M, Florida, South Carolina, Ole Miss. Which leads you to, is the SEC going to cannibalize itself this year?
Yeah, and you've got to be recruiting. I was referencing on a podcast we did on this channel yesterday, the AU Undercover. What's happening with Auburn football recruiting? They're taking this approach to, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver by December signing date. John Cohen, Hugh Freeze remind me a lot of Mayor Larry Vaughn in Amityville in the original Jaws movie. Oh, there's nothing to see here. The beaches are open, as you can see, this weekend on the 4th of July. It's going to be a big weekend. I don't like that. So there's a lot of storylines. John Hartwell, ULM AD. I'm looking at the Sun Belt, and last year your team got off to a hot start with Bryant Vincent as a coach, and then fell down at the end. You got to deal with the portal, guys coming and going. You got to deal with James Madison. You got to deal with Georgia Southern, Louisiana, University of Louisiana. Appalachian State's kind of been a marquee name in that conference. It's competitive over there because you're getting guys that are moving from other group of fives or P4s, whatever. It's like being a head chef at a big restaurant, isn't it? You walk in the kitchen every day, you don't know what's going to happen.
Hey, you got it in this business, whether you're a coach, athletic director, in today's world, to borrow a baseball analogy, you got to be willing to sit back on the curveball because they're coming every day. And, it's how we did business yesterday is different than how we are doing it today. And tomorrow is going to be different as well. But, again, as we talk on here all the time, and good to see you, Jake.
Good to see you, John.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. And, the optimism that comes as we've got media days coming. And I heard Jake going through a lot of teams there. Hey, I'll throw a couple of points there that really have not been talked about. The Texas Longhorns. Here's something to watch. That's real. I'm surprised how far this has gone underground, but I think this is a great thing for our team.
Oh, he's going into R2-D2 mode from Star Wars. Okay, we'll try to get him back. He's having some technical issues there. But, Jake, he's right. Every day something's changing. And I think there's a narrative out there that it's just going to be a select group of schools and everybody else isn't going to be a factor. I totally think it's the opposite. I think now with the big gift of money, things happening, things can change on a dime. And I am more excited about this upcoming football season than I think most people are because I see so many possibilities, not just within the SEC, but around the country. You talk to people in Mississippi every day, but you got, I'm sure, a lot of LSU fans because you're down in Jackson, not that far. What's the conversation like on a daily basis on ESPN 105.9 the afternoon drive?
Well, it's multifaceted, and you're right. You think Jackson, Mississippi, you think it's either State or Ole Miss, and it's way more than that. I mean, obviously that's the lion's share of the audience here, but a lot of LSU fans. We're only 2.5 hours from Baton Rouge. A lot of Alabama fans. We're only 90 minutes or a little more than that from Tuscaloosa. We got a lot of Florida fans here, and then we've got some, just a variety of fans, like everywhere else that move around. So, different talking points. One, Ole Miss, can they sustain? Can they get back in this playoff, picture, so to speak, this year for Mississippi State? Is it Jeff Levy? What does he need to do to survive a year? Basically, I don't think that he can go 0-16 after 2 years in the SEC and then, survive. Zach Selman is a conversation piece with Castaglione going down at stepping away at Oklahoma. Is he going to be at Mississippi State next year? So there's those questions there. Florida. Every time you talk about Florida, and I know Brennan knows this better than anybody, and Buddy, and you guys do. It's DJ Lagway. So as DJ Lagway goes, so will the Florida Gators go. So there's a lot of conversation pieces about a lot of those teams. Alabama. Will they, can they become, this Alabama that we saw 2 years ago, or will they continue to be, kind of back in the pack? So I think you can go around the Southeastern Conference, and there's great storylines on every single team that's in the conference. I mean, all the way from Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, you go to Missouri, Kentucky. I think that one of the things that we look at, we've been talking about this week is, how many coaches potentially could be on the hot seat at the end of the year? There is a scenario where there is about 5 or 6 coaches that are not in this league next year.
Yeah. Well, we were talking to Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South earlier this week on Tuesday morning on the show. Talked about Diego Pavia. He goes, Diego Pavia is 5'8". He goes, I know a 5'8" guy when I see one because I'm 5'8". And I was sitting there thinking, well, what I like to do is the Matt Dillon test. Miss Audrey and I love to watch the Gunsmoke channel at night on the color TV in the den. And you see Matt Dillon up against everybody. I mean, no, Chester, even with that, I don't know what happened to his leg, if it was a wooden leg or what it was, but Matt Dillon was 6'7", like John Hartwell. John, I'm looking for a picture of you standing next to Diego Pavia for the Matt Dillon test. But like what Jake just said, there's so many narratives. You got your media days coming up. Are the coaches talking football? Because I got a text from a friend yesterday. He said, I can't listen to this sports talk radio in the town where he lives in Alabama. He said, because it's like a financial podcast now. I want to talk football. I love football. Don't y'all?
Yeah, I think the closer we get to kickoff to the end of August, the more you're going to hear about football and the less you're going to hear about NIL. It'll still be a conversation. Hey, I apologize for the technical difficulties we had here on campus. Here's what I was going to say. A lot of people don't know about Texas, but watch Texas this year and watch the development of Arch Manning, because Neil Brown, former head coach at Troy, former head coach at West Virginia, is now on the staff for Steve Sarkisian at Texas. He is a great mentor of quarterbacks. And I think much in the same fashion that David Cutcliffe molded Eli Manning and Peyton Manning at Ole Miss and Tennessee, respectively, I think he is going to do wonders for Arch Manning. So what?
Yeah. Well, Jake, along that line, we had Coach David Cutcliffe on Monday morning's show. He talked about, for years, Arch and his brother Hud would come up from New Orleans to Durham, North Carolina when he was coaching at Duke, and he did a lot of work with them. He goes, it wasn't about recruiting him. He goes, it's Cooper Manning's son. And he said, I told Arch the same thing I told his uncles. He said, I told this to your Uncle Peyton and your Uncle Eli. He said, just be a great teammate. Pressure, what Chuck Noll said to Bill Cowher when he handed over the reins of the Steeler Nation? He said, pressure is what you feel when you don't know what you're doing. Do you think Arch Manning is as level-headed as he looks? I mean, he looks pretty calm.
I mean, I don't know Arch Manning personally, but here's what I do know, Rob, and I'm gonna put it in terms that something like you would say. You like to hunt, right? So
Yes.
all about bird dogs and the right kind of dogs, the bloodlines. So what I know
Absolutely.
is if I need a puppy and I need a good bird dog, you're going to tell me, you can say, Jake, you need to go visit this man over here. Go visit Pat over here in Madison. Pat's got a good line of bird dogs. The bloodline is there. We've seen it with Archie. We saw it with Eli. We saw it with Peyton. He almost has to be, right? I mean, he almost doesn't have a choice. Now, granted, things can go south. You can get a bird dog that doesn't have the right bloodline in him. But I would, if I'm a betting man, and I'm going to say that he checks every box because he has to.
Yeah. And speaking of that, my friend Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas, known him 30 years. And I've had 3 competitive Labrador retrievers. You know what? Dogs can't read their pedigrees, but their owners can. You got to still train them, no matter how good the pedigree may be. You've really got to train them. But that's a great point. I'm going to look at, if I'm buying a horse or a dog, I'm going 3 deep on that depth chart. Mom, dad, grandparents. That is so true. I want to ask you about Mississippi State's quarterback situation. Jeff Lebby, wherever he's been, has been a successful offensive coach. The 1 year Zach Arnett was there, did you ever ask him, why did you go and do a 180 from what Mike Leach was doing? Mike Leach was building Mississippi State. They won 9 games his last year. But Lebby is an offensive guy. Can the defense be 40 or 50% better this year? Is that possible with the personnel they have?
We'll find out together. I don't know that we know. I mean, they look like a better defensive unit. Getting off the bus, talking to people up there. I mean, they have the look of a better defensive front. They have the look of a better secondary. They're a little longer and more athletic. So, you hope that they are. One of the things that we want to see is last year that defense was just out of position in a lot of ball games too. And it's very unusual to see a high level, a Power 4 team. Mississippi State's not going to be confused with Georgia or Alabama. Excuse me, but they are still a Southeastern Conference football team, and they need to play like it. For Mississippi State, I mean, look, if they're a touchdown better, that defensively, that goes a long, long way. Offensively, if Blake Shapen can stay healthy, I think that they will be okay offensively. I mean, they were sitting around 27, 28 points per game last year. They need to hit that 30, 35 point, threshold this year if they can do it. And fans are fanatics, right? So, a lot of the fans want to go ahead and see. They don't understand the Blake Shapen thing. This isn't everybody, but they don't understand the Blake Shapen thing. They want to see Kamario Taylor, the true freshman, Knoxville County. Fans now with NIL, they get scared. They say, well, hey, look, if we're not playing these high-level freshmen, then somebody else is going to pull them out of here. I mean, you just look at Michael Van Buren, who was at Mississippi State last year. Now he's the backup at LSU this year.
Yeah.
So But what fans fail to realize, like Kamario Taylor, he's not ready. I mean, he's a true freshman, but I mean, you can cut the tape on. He looks really good high school wise. He's not ready to play in the SEC. And Jeff Levy has to win now, and ever how many games he can get. And I think Blake Shapen gives him the best opportunity to do that.
All right, Sawyer Robertson was at Mississippi State for a while. Yep. He's now the starting quarterback at Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
Was he a Mississippi in-state kid?
No, he was from Texas. He came in here and was recruited and came in, and he was on the same depth chart with Will Rogers. I think he knew that wasn't going to work out, so he left. I know Mississippi State would love to have him back. You speak of the Auburn Tigers. I mean, they're going to have their hands full with him and Baylor. Yeah. Dave Aranda week 1.
Yeah, right. Baylor's a 1, 2, or 3 in the Big 12 going into the league, and I was listening to our friend Chuck Oliver and Heath Klein's out at Big 12 Media Days in Frisco, Texas. It's pretty funny to hear Heath talking yesterday. They do it in 2 days, 8 coaches a day times 2, 16. He said they had a roundtable discussion up there with all the coaches that were there, all 8 of them. He said, how'd you like to see them try that in the SEC? That'd be kind of fun. The other thing he said was in between breaks, they had a DJ. I mean, not just playing like, music, but scratching it and going backwards like, kids today do that you and me are like, well, you're going to ruin the record. But he also said they bring out cheerleaders for the schools. They have to cheer in the mascot before the coach comes on. Maybe we ought to try to jazz it up at SEC Media Days. You think they'd go for that?
I don't know. I don't know that Paul Feinbaum would go for that. I think
yes.
Probably runs that whole show over there.
Yeah, it is a made-for-TV event. All right, so now I got to ask you, you look at the SEC, Arkansas is another team. Second year Bobby Petrino's been up there coaching Taylon Green. He'll be at SEC Media Days again. Do you see a big rise in production from him? Because Petrino, whatever you think of him, he can coach.
He absolutely can coach. We know that for a fact. You could see definitely a rise in production. I think one of the things, though, there was a good bit of attrition there at Arkansas. And, again, we talk a lot about scheduling, but I have to go to that schedule for Arkansas. I mean, having to go to Ole Miss in week 3, they do play at Memphis and Notre Dame. I mean, that's a tough 3-week stretch right there in the first 5 weeks. And then, of course, after the bye week, at Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, they'll host Mississippi State, get a bye week, and then they'll go LSU, Texas on the road, and then Missouri. I just think the schedule is too tough. And, when you start stacking them on top of each other, I mean, Taylon Green could be better, but I don't know that Arkansas as a whole will be any better.
Well, you think about Vanderbilt last year with Diego Pavia. They beat Alabama. The next week they go on the road, beat Kentucky 20-13. Most people thought they probably would just fall apart after still celebrating. They got the win. But it's pretty obvious Diego Pavia, after that game, was not the same player. He was beat up. It's a grind in the SEC. You see this book over my left shoulder, right? I feel like the weatherman. Here we go. Winning in Chaos. It's Armin Katian and our friend John Talty, the new senior college football writer for CBS Sports. That's where we are right now in chaos. If you were at SEC Media Days, what's the first question you would ask Commissioner Greg Sankey?
Oh, the first question I would ask him, man, that's I don't know if we get put on the spot. There's so much that I would want to ask him.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's so much going on. I think the first question I would ask him is how much faith does he have that the NCAA can really pull off this rev share model and do it in a way that everybody, gets what they need and also do it in a way that this thing works over the next 5 years. I think I would love to hear his response to that. I'm sure that he would kind of dodge that just a little bit because Greg Sankey said a couple of years ago, he said, hey, look, we're going to give them every shot to make this right. If not, we'll have to possibly take matters into our own hands. I'm wondering if Greg Sankey isn't leaning towards taking the matters into their own hands. I would be curious to know that.
Yeah, and I think too, you look around at the conferences. The Pac 8.5, they're going to put something together. You go back 40 and 50 years ago, they brought in Arizona and Arizona State. Frank Kush had a pretty damn good program. He got a little too hands-on in practice, and golly, that's how we grew up in football. I tell you what, that's kind of sad. That I think the kids, by the way, today are starved. They're clamoring to be coached hard. All you got to do is look at the numbers, recruiting numbers for the United States Marine Corps. They are through the roof now. And I know I see where they bring them in every Monday to the Hilton in East Memphis. It's pretty wild. But they want to be coached hard. Jake, you look at the money that's out there. That's all a distraction. So depth charts and everything like that. You're right. Georgia, not the same as they were 2 or 3 years ago. How do you convince me that there's an elite team in all of college football, with the exception maybe of Ohio State? So it's more wide open. You can call it parity or whatever, but it's a damn scramble right now, isn't it?
No, it is.
It's great.
It's massive scramble. And, again, Ohio State, tons of money there, tons of money in Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have a team that's going to be head and shoulders better than everybody. I just think we have a group of about 6 or 7 right now that's going to, kind of going to be in that pot to compete for it all.
Yeah, Jake, I know you mentioned you had a hard out at 25 after. I know you're an engineer and you're watching that clock, but absolutely love having you come on here. So stay as long as you can, but this is great stuff.
No, I appreciate you guys having me. Hey, make sure to give me a follow on X at Jake Wim. We'll be, of course, covering a lot of high school football today. We'll be getting ready for SEC Media Days as we continue. It's talking seasons here.
Hey,
I got you on X. I just retweeted you. So
thank you, sir.
And Jake, I will be glad to call in for Media Days if you need me to on the afternoon show. I'll be there all week long.
Probably do that for sure.
Holding up at the Motel 6 in downtown Atlanta.
All right, we'll get you on. Be safe.
Take care, man. All right, Brendan, John said they're having an internet storm down there.
There's an internet storm? I've never seen one of those.
Well, on campus. Something happened on campus. May have been a fraternity prank or some tomfoolery or some shenanigans or something. I don't know what it was.
I think if you mess with the internet, it's not tomfoolery, it's jail.
Yeah,
that's not messing around. That's
hey, where's the SEC board from Barnwood, Brenda? Is that over your left shoulder? There we go. Yeah, here we go.
You got a nice small one. Mine's really big, and it's hard to get it on camera.
I need to get you. You have to get a bigger.
You're just tiny.
Hey, Brendan,
the size of a smorgasbord.
Got to ask you about something about Florida. You mentioned about 6.5 million Florida fans. It's a state of 23 million people.
I don't know. I told you that a while ago. I don't know if that's
no, but it's a massive.
On that. I don't know.
I know, but it's a massive fan base, and you look at capacity in the stadium. They sell out every game. What you're in Ocala. You're out walking around every day. What are the expectations for the Florida fans that you talk with? Because once you win national championships, once you eat at Folks Folly Steakhouse, you can never go back to CK's, and it's never the same. Once your mind expands, it never goes back.
It's the same. I mean, it doesn't go back. I think the average Florida fan is realistic because of what the last decade is produced. So there's that. But I think average Florida fan anywhere around here, expectation is to win a natty. I mean, every single year, expectation is to win the national championship. That's just how it's always been, though. It's all. I mean, and I think it's a lot like the Alabama culture. It's a lot like even Auburn to some. Like it's these established teams that they expect greatness because there's so much money spent. I think people don't understand when you don't live in an SEC town. Maybe you live out west, because I lived out west forever. It's just a different perspective. So you expect your team every year to make a run at the SEC. You hope to win like Spurrier already said, go win the SEC, and then everything else will fall in line. That was before college playoffs, but I think that is expectation.
Yeah.
Especially this year. I mean, this year there is an expectation, even of all Gator fans. Like, it's the year. Like, it's always great to talk in talking season, and every year in talking season, we seem to talk up, Billy Napier and the Gators and the scheme and all that stuff. So I think right now, we are all. I know I am, as a Gator fan, anticipating a really good season. So, Rob, you said they're going to win 10 games. I'm a little apprehensive to put all that out there yet, but just because of obviously we want to maybe look a little bit more before we get into it in August, especially with fall practice coming around the corner. So,
Yeah. I tell you what, ambition without action turns into anxiety. I
well,
think that
yeah,
describes to
there's
all
just a
fan
lot.
bases.
There's just a lot of question marks right now. So,
Yeah.
not a lot. There's just some. I
Well,
think Lagway's health, obviously. People can tell me all day long he's fine, but you don't know until you see it in action. And I'm not being a hater. I'm
no,
just
you're not.
saying. I just saying that I think that's a legitimate question. I think we've had some really good, smart people on here asking the same questions.
Well, one player that I do want to get a chance to talk to at SEC Media Days is the big guy from Ocala, Jake Slaughter.
Yeah,
because
I gotta get on. Soccer starts next week for Stella, so we're gonna see Jake Slaughter's
yeah.
peeps out there. Great community he's a part of, and I'm gonna beg, borrow, and steal, see if we can get him on here.
Well, absolutely would love it. All right. So before Gary Harris joins us from Tuscaloosa, I'm seeing, and I'm with you. Every day we get closer, it is so much more football focus. Depth charts, blocking, tackling, special teams, and you look at these quarterback narratives. We had David Cutcliffe on. That was really good insight. Things I did not know about T. Martin. Does everything with his right hand because as a kid, his dad would not let him be a left-handed, but he threw the football.
It seems a little harsh to me. It's just
well, my dad said when he was a kid, the teachers scolded him for being left-handed, and he said, they were like, "No, you use your right hand." That's what it used to be really frowned upon. Ask your dad.
Yeah, I asked him about that. He said they didn't really have a whole lot of that around here. So
well,
I think it's kind of like a deep South thing.
Get the nuns get after you with a ruler, like going, "Son, give me 5 Hail Marys. Use your right hand." But
yeah. Okay,
and so I'm looking here now at what I'm seeing for media days. You see, everybody's bringing 3 players. I think Dion brought 5 guys or something, brought a bunch to Big 12 media days. I thought that was pretty cool, having a round table of all 8 coaches each day up on the stage.
I mean, you're jacked up about media days. I can tell you are jacked up. You've been a kid, been Christmas for like days. You just, and I appreciate about you. And it gives me a new, fervor for the media days because I grew up going to these things my whole life. It's like when I talk to my sister, she's like, God, it's like, how many of these things we've been to? I don't know.
Hey, look, I as a kid used to go to big.
I mean, it's just regurgitated.
Yeah.
We know what they're going to say. No one's going to say anything radical, right? No one's going to come out and say anything wrong. I think there's going to be some good questions being asked. I think the Sankey stuff will be good, but I don't know how much, they're pretty tight-lipped. I am curious about how we're talking about when you're LSU's selling their jerseys like race cars. Like
NASCAR.
We're not, we said that was going to come. I put that in the title, and I said those don't know, but they're seeking approval. LSU seeking approval to become a race car with just advertisements. Can you blame them to some degree? I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I guess that's going to be a lot that patch is going to be expensive. I mean, Nike and those guys are going to be lining up for that. So I don't know, what. I don't know if they're going to put this. This reported July 5th aims to generate millions annually to bolster NIL funds. The initiative is part of the post-house settlement era, where schools can share up to $20.5 million annually with athletes. LSU hopes that this will provide financial edge, though how the revenue will directly benefit athletes remains unclear.
Yeah.
Clear as mud? Clear as mud.
Yes, and we know that we can trust everything we hear.
And read everything on the internet.
Yes, totally because it's true. Hey, Maury D. Gaston from Sylacauga, Alabama. My father was right-handed, and his father taught him to play all sports left-handed because it was more difficult to play defense against left-handers. Great point.
Actually, I spent a whole summer throwing left-handed sidearm to try to get to be because I was a pitcher to try to get and then I couldn't get the left-handed, so I threw sidearm, just to go. But the left-handed thing, like that was a thing. You wanted to be ambidextrous. You absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing to be able to do, especially if you're an RPO option quarterback, whatever. If you can throw with your left hand, and they think you're right-handed, you can throw with your left. That totally gives you an advantage. All right. So I'm looking here now. Yeah, I'm excited about media days, and it's really going to see the people, the relationships that you build there. It's like a giant trade show. As far as the coaches, we said this 30 years ago when I was a TV reporter. You could take the 10 sound bites that you hear the most, put them in a time capsule, and 70, 80, 100 years from now, it'll be the same thing. So let's go over the top 5 sound bites that we'll hear at media days.
Let's bring in Gary Harris first because we know he's got limited time and he just popped in.
There
Gary, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show. We got you right mid-drink of the water there. That's the worst timing ever.
Good morning.
The man from born in Miami, raised in Claiborne County.
He's got that. You do have that Hollywood vibe. I kind of feel that movie star vibe from you, Gary, a little bit.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something, Gary. At night, you put out some just great content. I talked to Rodney Orr about what y'all are working on. A Tighter Insider TV, folks. You're a Bama fan. You're a football fan. You got to watch it. Tuesday nights at 6:30. Gary, I can fly from New York to San Diego across this great country, 3,000 plus miles, and say, there's America. But I want to drill down local. That's what Brendan talks about, and he's exactly right. Let's dial in locally. I got the May family listening, Mary Turner, great attorney there in Tuscaloosa. A lot of them watching. I'm going to tell you something. They're going, Brown, give us some Bama. What's happening? And then let's talk SEC football. We're not going to talk about those distractions. And then right after this show, people, there it is, Tide 100.9. Gary's 9 to 11. It's a great show.
Well, right here in Tuscaloosa, everything's, football-wise, as you guys were alluding to, SEC Media Days next week's kind of the unofficial kickoff of the season. But there's a really positive vibe right now surrounding this program. I mean, I've talked a lot on my show, Rob and Brendan, about, listen, it's just July. You get these commitments. You still got to get them signed in December, okay? And then you still got to get them into your program and try to develop them and retain them. So there's so much that goes into, these recruiting classes. I was looking at the 2022 recruiting class that was really highly ranked, and very few of those guys, just a handful of guys, are left from that recruiting class here at Alabama. So, but having said that, you would rather be racking up commits. I mean, you'd rather be in the position where you were getting verbals. Alabama's got 19 of them, 5 stars, than not. And, that's just the reality of it. You would rather be winning the offseason than losing off the season. And right now in this state, there's one program that's winning the offseason and another that's losing the offseason. So now, does that matter once they get into September? You win games or you lose games, that's still going to dictate everything about how your fan base feels about the program. But for right now, everything's going really well for Alabama. I think staff-wise, too, there's a feeling that there's symmetry and chemistry with Grubb back to run the offense and Sheridan coaching the quarterbacks, and a year under the belt for this coaching staff. I think everybody is confident that this program is, right there at the Nick Saban level, and we'll have an opportunity to, if it plays up to its potential, to win enough games to get into that playoff this year. And have, if not even, to Atlanta for the SEC championship game, and have an opportunity to compete for an SEC title and a national title. That's the feeling right now.
Watching on this SEC takeover.
Undefeated, right? We're all undefeated right
now.
Yeah,
everybody's undefeated right now.
We're having great talking points right now.
Yeah.
Brendan makes a great point, too, about for some fan bases, let's be honest, man, this is the best time of the year, because we're going to get 4, 5, or 6 games in, 16 teams in this league. Everybody's not going to win. There's going to be a number of programs where the fans already said, hey, man, when's basketball start? Right now, everybody's undefeated. You always, as a fan, you see best case scenario for your team. If I'm a fan of Arkansas or Mississippi State even, or these teams that maybe aren't at the elite level, right now, though, I'm saying, hey, this guy does this, and this guy does this, and this signee does this, and we get to break, we can be good. So everybody sees best case scenario right now.
Well, it's a lot like my friend David Irwin from Fairhope, Alabama, told me one time his parents suggested he wasn't taking college serious, so they suggested he join the Marine Corps Reserve. He said it was all spits and giggles until they were driving across the Low Country Causeway, and it said Paris Island Marine Corps Training Depot, 3 miles, and they were like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" But that first game's coming, and you're going to Tallahassee, Doak S. Campbell Stadium, Tallahassee. That's going to be a big game. It's easy to keep those guys motivated in these summer workouts, that 4:30 a.m. wake-up call, because I know as a swimmer, 4:30, 4:45, it's a different mentality. That's why I'm not worried about Alabama at Florida State.
Well, I think this. I think you guys know this too, and Nick Saban called it the process. I've heard other coaches talk about everybody wants to play well in the game. Everybody wants, once the season gets there, everybody's excited. You've got to put the work in. Games in September really aren't won in September. They're won in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and obviously in the fall camp. What you do now and what these players are doing now has a large factor in what's going to happen in the fall. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very important time. The workouts, bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, you just have to continue to build toward that as a player and as a bigger group as a team. So I think all these teams are working hard to get ready. And I think you're right. In Alabama's case, I think they understand that this Florida State team they're facing isn't going to be the same Florida State team as last year. In fact, they're going to, as we talked about last week, extra motivated, 2-10 a year ago, kind of hitting the reset button. You got Gus Malzahn coming in, as we said. He is, he really, when he was at Auburn, got motivated as he should have. But I mean, I think he really gets pumped up to face Alabama, and I think he feels like that he's got some offensive schemes that can give Alabama trouble. So you're going to get the best version of Florida State. It's going to be a sellout crowd. Obviously, it's going to be hot for both teams, but I think I think that's a big game. Right now, if you look at the two rosters and you just sort of break them down player by player, I mean, Alabama, I think, is a better football team than Florida State.
Yeah. You think Gus will be wearing a sweater vest?
If he's wearing a sweater vest in that afternoon arena, then he is totally 100% dedicated to sweater vest. Right
there, you go. All right. So
hey, I just hope it says Florida State, not Auburn.
Yeah.
Hope he puts the right one on.
Yeah. So Ty Simpson, Garrett Nussmeier are two guys. Garrett, in his 5th year at LSU, coaches son. Ty Simpson, coach's son. His dad's coach at UT Martin, the Racers up there in Martin, Tennessee. And he's got a younger brother at Martin Westview who's coming up, highly regarded quarterback. Talk about Ty Simpson and the quarterback room at Alabama. What are you hearing about the summer workouts?
Good. I think Ty really handled himself well at the Manning Passing Academy. Got a lot of positive momentum out of that.
Yeah.
Showed well. I think the feeling is that he's going into his 4th year, that he's ready. And behind him with Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, I think they feel like they've got two really uber talented quarterbacks. Yeah. But for Ty, I think there's a strong positive vibe that he is going to be the guy. Now, you say that because you have to just have that vibe or feeling or feel like he's ready, because he hasn't proven it. I mean, he's never started a game. The only, real playing time that he had when it mattered was at South Florida a couple years ago when he came in for
Jalen.
No, he came in for the kid that was
Tyler Buckner, a lacrosse player.
Yeah,
a lacrosse player.
That's right. Came in for Buckner and kind of bailed Alabama out in that game. But other than that, he has not played significant snaps. I mean, he's not been in a game that's mattered other than if he came in for equipment, for a helmet or something for 1 or 2 plays. So, but that's the feeling right now, is he is going to be the guy. Alabama has not officially announced that, but Grubb said, following spring, pretty much, that if we played tomorrow, Ty Simpson would be the quarterback.
Yeah, and it looks like, to me, when you look at the Alabama offensive line, Jaden Roberts, kid out of Houston, has been there for, I'm going to say 8 years, 9 years. He's so good. You talked about him. Rodney talked about him. He just took that position. Then you've got Parker Brailsford, Caden Proctor. Something Cole Kubelik said, he's been able to find a way to miss spring practice 2 years in a row, going back to Iowa, coming back. So he's missed a lot of reps. You've seen a lot of great offensive linemen. I go back to the Hannas. I mean, you know Alabama football. You've forgotten more than the collective Western civilization you and Rodney knows. How good can Caden Proctor be with all that being said on this offensive line? Because he is an absolute monster. And so is Wilkin Formby.
Yeah, I think both those tackles looked the part. I think in Proctor's case, he's got the tools, right? I mean, he's got all the physical attributes needed to play left tackle, and he has. I don't know if he's lost weight, but he's kind of reshaped his body. His muscle mass seems to be. He looks more lean, and has gotten rid of some of that. I guess
baby fat. What's called?
Unneeded weight, baby
cafeteria fat.
Right. So he looks better now. He's going to be in his third year. So yeah, I expect him to take a big step and be a really solid left tackle. Wilkin Formby at right tackle, man, he is really a specimen. He's one of those guys at 6'7" or close to 6'8", about 310 pounds, and he's. So yeah, I think both those guys are ready. But in Proctor's case, to answer your question, Rob, I think he's got NFL talent. I mean, he's got the ability to play in the National Football League as a left tackle. But this is a big season for him. Yeah. As you said, he's missed the last couple of springs, and if he does want to come out after this season, then he's going to need to play well this year.
Well, when you think about Wilkin Formby, his grandfather was a punter at Alabama for Coach Bryant. But I have to ask this question: with NIL being what it is, I hate that term, but is Taco Casa a sponsor? Because that's the family business, and I think about Taco Casa's probably had a lot to do with his development. Because anytime I am in Tuscaloosa or Homewood, where they have a Taco Casa, I'm going to get about 12 of them. Waller May and I can eat 24 of them. I used to have to go when I was a pledge and get those things anytime, any hour of the day. And I'd bring back 48. One time I brought back 96 tacos from the Casa to the house. 96, not just for one person though.
I know, but still, that's
too many for me.
Wilkin does a commercial for them, so he's tied in. But
Gary,
whatever helps you develop.
What do you think about LSU ready to be NASCAR with their uniforms? We're looking for possibilities. I don't know, man. I said that earlier when we saw. I think we all kind of said, I said, what's it going to be like NASCAR? We're going to wear patches. I mean,
yes.
Hey, now with the $20.5 million potential share, why not? I mean, you gotta do something.
Revenue stream. I mean, wherever you can get it. And, we see it in pro sports. I mean, I remember, of course, obviously soccer was one of the first to do it. Yeah. But, your mind, you get, I remember when NBA teams started first wearing it, I'm like, what the heck? Now I don't even think anything about it. No. So, I think you're going to see – I don't think you'll ever see Alabama do it. I could be wrong. I just think Alabama is such a about tradition and history with those uniforms. They take that stuff seriously. But, I think you're going to see more programs that say, if you're willing to pay us for branding on the uniforms or on the side, back of the helmet or, wherever we can fit it in, cleats, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to think you're going to sell a title sponsorship there to one, like if you're going to be Taco Casa, you're just going to have like one big Taco Casa. And then they're like, that's the title sponsorship. But not going to have like 45 patches like, you're a Boy Scout or something.
Yeah, but I just the field, that's another area where you can sell branding, obviously the ribbons and
the graphics. People don't understand the overlay graphics now. You can sell. That's why people don't understand. You go to the stadium, you'll see like green cards around some of the because they're just flipping graphics all the time. Everything's going to be sold out. That first down brought to you by Taco Casa.
Well, Gary,
don't eat 100 tacos in one city.
Gary, I saw my friend Mark Rose, who is a professional fisherman in Wynn, Arkansas. I counted 25 sponsors on the side of his truck and his boat. Someone said, he's got a lot of sponsors. And I said, I'll tell you one thing, he's trying to get number 26.
That's right.
And it's amazing, the sponsors that you can get. Can you imagine if Alabama did on their jerseys allow you to sell a sponsorship? If you had that thing in the front, right by the number, the exposure, the eyeballs, the views that you would get. But I'm with you. But
I
we're
mean,
just in a,
FSU could sponsor the backpack that they give out for like that cool backpack thing that they do for when they have an interception or everything.
yeah.
That's one of my favorite. That's one of my least favorite. The
Yeah.
chain, the backpack. I'm not wearing the backpack.
I agree. I agree with that. Gary, now, obviously, we got our media days coming up next week in Atlanta. That's going to be fun. But big picture, SEC versus the rest of the nation. And I'm asking everybody this question. We had Jake Wimberly on right before you. Find me an elite team. And I know Alabama right now, 5 5-stars. There's only probably 35 in the whole country in a given year. 5 of them already committed to Alabama. Can you make a case for the SEC having an elite team or two, say, compared to every other conference in America? Is that possible?
You mean for the season?
Yeah, right now, based on what you know at this moment.
Yeah, I hadn't really gone in depth on that thought process. I mean, I always think the SEC is going to have a couple of elite teams. I don't really know who they're going to be, but I think when it plays out, SEC will have a couple. Obviously, I think you got to look at the Big Ten with what they've been able to do the last couple of years with Michigan and Ohio State winning national championships. I think Clemson's got a chance to be elite in the ACC, and it wouldn't surprise me with that Big 12 roster if they have a team that I think, all the Power 4 teams or conferences will have an elite team or two this season. I think it'll play out that way. So let's say there's 2 in the SEC, there's 2 in the Big 10, there's 1 in the Big 12 and 1 in the ACC. That's 6 teams right there. So yeah, I think you can make a case for all those conferences, but certainly for the SEC, maybe the SEC might even have 3 elite teams.
Yeah. Well, Feinbaum, you saw his comments about a week or two ago about how he said the SEC is lost its luster a little bit. Do you believe that? I don't.
No,
see it.
I don't. I think what has happened is I think the SEC's still been really, really good the last couple of years. Yeah. I think that you had Michigan and Ohio State kind of live up to what they should be. Yeah. I mean, and I don't look at the Big Ten and think the Big Ten is better than the SEC top to bottom. I don't. I still think the SEC is a more, is a deeper league.
Absolutely.
But the Big Ten has had 2 really elite teams the last 2 seasons, and they won national championships. And so if you looked at it just based on who wins the national title, then I guess you could say the SEC's lost a little bit of its luster, but I don't see it that way, Brendan.
The gauntlet's not the same. It's just not the same. There's no way that's the same thing. And we had Urban Meyer and all these guys come and say the same thing. And every coach will tell you, whatever conference they come in, it's SEC's a different deal because you can go out and play. Bama's got to play everybody. It's like Florida's got to play everybody. Vanderbilt could beat you. Right. and that's a real thing. So, you don't have a down week, and then staying healthy is what it's all about.
Yeah. If you can have the same, and I don't say the starting 22, it's the starting 24. Don't forget your punter and your, field goal kicker, and also your deep snapper. So you're starting 20, 25. Exactly. So if you can have those same guys from start to start, from game 1 through game 12, that's a hell of a season. You're probably going to win a lot of games. But I think last year, Big 12 Media Days, who was picked 16th out of 16 in the Big 12?
Remind me.
Arizona State.
Oh, wow.
Doogie Howser, Kenny Dillingham, who's about 34, amazing coach. And they had Texas till they didn't. The thing about Alabama that's intriguing is Ryan Grubb's coming back. The familiarity, and that's such a big deal. I don't give a damn who you're playing, who you're beating. Winning is winning, Kalen DeBoer, he knows how to do that. Jalen Milroe, God love him. I don't think it was the right fit at quarterback for what Kalen DeBoer likes to do. He probably likes a guy like Ty Simpson or Austin Mack or, Keelan Russell, something like that. But you go with what you've got, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, listen. I'm a little sensitive to the Jalen Milroe bashing. I'm not saying that's what you were doing.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying.
I've heard a lot of it, and I don't agree. I think that he, could he have played better in some games? Sure, but I know he was a dynamic quarterback. I talked to enough coaches and former coaches that said to prepare for that guy. was a nightmare for a defensive coordinator. But they didn't have the season that they would have liked to have had, and that a lot of that's been pinned on Milroe. Has he been made a scapegoat? To me, yes, to some degree. You know, nobody talks about the year before when they won the SEC championship and beat Georgia, when very few folks gave them a chance to do that. And, they lost, but they went to overtime against Michigan, which won the national championship. But last year, the season didn't turn out well, and he certainly could have played better at times. I think he played through some injuries. To get back to your point, though, Rob, is he – I think you're right. I think last year he was certainly the best option at quarterback. If they'd had a better option, I think they would have played him. Yeah. To what you're saying and others have said about the type of quarterback that Kalen DeBoer wants, we'll see. I mean, I hope that that's true. I hope that Ty Simpson steps in here and the offense is more dynamic and well-rounded. I think you mentioned Ryan Grubb. This is not a knock on Nick Sheridan. He is a sharp dude. Mm-hmm. But, was he ready to call plays in the SEC last year? I'm not sure. I mean, that wasn't the original plan. And, with Ryan Grubb back, I think the alignment is better on the staff. And I do think it's going to make a difference having Ryan Grubb back. I do. And it can make a difference for Ty Simpson.
One thing, sure, too. I heard
Milroe didn't have Ryan Grubb last year. Yeah. Let's remember that, too.
And I heard from a very good friend from some of your big boosters that Jalen Milroe, say what you want about him, but I heard he took care of his teammates that didn't get much NIL, was very, very generous, and that needs to be reported. Plus, both of his parents are United States Marines.
Yeah, everything I know about Jalen Milroe, and listen, there may be some other people that have other stories. Everything that I know about the kid is class.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he treated his teammates, the went of his way, the way that when he was sitting in my studio last year and did, 30, 45-minute interview with me.
Damn. That's
class,
unheard of.
Well, one time.
Wow. Yeah.
But he was a class act. Sponsors, people that he had, so I've got a really good opinion of Jalen Milroe, and I'm pulling for him. I don't listen, if you don't think he was a great quarterback last year, that's one thing. But some of this animosity toward him that some fans seem to have, I don't get it. I've never understood that. I've never understood if a guy plays for your team and giving him all, you could say, man, I think there's somebody better. But the venom that some of these fans spew against these players, I don't understand that. My mind doesn't go there.
Well, Gary,
we both deal with that, Gary, and the Florida fan base same way.
Yeah.
You wonder sometimes how much of them are just like plants or something.
You do wonder.
You really do. You see a lot of trolls. Gary, before you go, what do you? I know you talked about the Florida State game. How do you see Bama rolling into Georgia on September 27th?
Well, I tell you, right? You had to put me on the spot, didn't you? Because
I wouldn't let you out of here.
No, I said this on my show earlier. Right now, and again, as
I'm a producer. What do you want? I just pick it up.
Right now, I'd like Georgia in that game. I just think they're too good. They've been too good for too long. The way Alabama has handled them over the last 15 years is remarkable. I mean, you look at Georgia's record under Kirby against everybody else, and then you look at it against Alabama. Thank goodness for Georgia people, they won that one national championship game. Are they have a goose egg? But right now, the way and I think Alabama's going to be really good. But to go in there on Saturday night, knowing what Alabama has done to Georgia, particularly 2 years ago when we talked about Milroe and them knocking them out of the playoff, and then last year I just think it's going to be Georgia's time. I think So I think Georgia right now, I would pick Georgia to beat Alabama.
And Gary, for someone who sees these kids every day, day in and day out, it means a hell of a lot for what you just said. You are an HCI. High character individual. Thank you, Gary.
HCI. I'm going to get you a t-shirt. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Rob, very much. Y'all have a good day.
You too. Brendan, let me say something about our sponsors. Rumble Boxing, folks. They're one of the people sending us to media days. Ann Campley and the group at McLean and Union in Midtown Memphis, open every day of the week. They got a great slogan. As you age, fight back. Rumble Boxing. They got 48 punching bags. You do weights. You do the bag. The workouts are 45 minutes. How you fight is how you live. Rumble Boxing. Get everything you can out of life. And, Brendan, it also means right now you're out there working on your food plots, if you're a deer hunter, if you're a duck hunter, you got to be preparing. Winter Timber Outdoors. Chris Aiken, friend of mine involved with Winter Timber, Web-Footed Kennels also, said, looks like first week of August, 13,000 square foot store opening on University Drive in Auburn. You cannot say enough good things also about your executive producer, these QR codes. Take pictures of them, folks. That's how you get to them. They got everything you need, hunting, fishing, all the Yeti coolers. They've got boots, hats, St. Nick's knives, all your guns, ammunition, everything that you need. Bottom line, the food plots, the deer stands. You're a turkey hunter, duck hunter, dove hunter. Dove season will be here in about 7 weeks, okay? Starts always September 1st in the South. And LandersForwardMemphis.com, folks. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Germantown and Collierville collide. They're open every day of the week. Now, Brad Bellamy, general manager, was texting with him this week. They've got the Broncos. The men and women love them, okay? The Ford, the Power, Promise. The 25 expeditions are in their service department. Hey, no matter where you are, they'll pick you up, deliver you, and take you back home while they're working on your car, truck, or SUV. Open every day of the week, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Ask them, tell them what you're trying to get. They'll work with you. They'll do everything humanly possible to get you driving off the lot. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. That's their slogan, and they mean it, okay? Also down the street, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square. Look at those boots, Brendan. Looking forward to seeing you in those wild boar boots. They've got the hats. They've got the luggage. Look at this Filson luggage here. They've got STS, Filson, everything, Barber, duck heads, men's and women's clothes. They've got great looking earrings, the polymer clay earrings they've got there. They're not expensive, but they're the best quality. My wife loves those things. As they call them on Gunsmoke, ear bobs. Okay, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m., 6 p.m. Charles Hall, his wife Laura, J.M. Huffman, Raven, the whole crew out there dedicated to nothing but a great customer experience. And again, Web-Footed Kennels, folks, that's our friend Chris Aiken, who's involved heavily with Winter Timber Outdoors. They are in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Now's the time. You better be having that dog trained. Web-Footed Kennels. Find him on Facebook, Chris Aiken. Known him 30 years. I've trained with him a lot. He has a 225-acre absolute paradise with technical ponds and lakes, everything for the outdoor life. He's another one of the ones sending us to SEC Media Days. Thank you, Chris Aiken, Janet, the whole team up in Jonesboro. Brendan,
we need to talk about this Gunsmoke thing. You're referencing it way too much, and nobody knows Gunsmoke.
Well, hey, Festus,
your references to, like, they're like, you're digging deep into Gunsmoke. So I think it's cerebrally getting in your brain. You guys are falling asleep with it on at night.
By the way,
to turn it off.
By the way, another one just came on board sending it to me. George Gaddis Home Innovations is sending us to SEC Media Days. Love this guy, one of the best. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Watch this channel. See y'all tomorrow. Thank you, Brendan. You're the best.